Being an undertaker up here in the mountains of eastern Kentucky can be quite an adventure sometimes. We were in the chapel having his service, and while we were having his service, his wife passed away during the service. We rode his motorcycle in and set it by the casket. We deal with people at the worst time of their life, the loss of a loved one. You've got to have a compassionate heart.
Folks, we've talked to everyone on this channel from blacksmiths to police officers, but we've never did an interview with an undertaker. Well, today we're going to sit down and talk with our good friend Randy Cole, who is funeral director at Mount Pleasant Funeral Home in Harlan, Kentucky. Randy has been in the business for over 50 years.
Yeah, well over 50 years.
Well over 50 years.
Yeah.
And we've been pestering him a long time to sit down and talk with us about the human side, not the technical side of the business, but about the human side of working in that business for so long. Now, I called him a funeral director opening up this video, but he's got another name for himself that I like.
Well, I've been up here in the mountains of eastern Kentucky. I've referred to myself many times as a mountain undertaker.
Old Kentucky Mountain Undertaker.
Old Kentucky Mountain Undertaker.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty
I like that.
fitting term sometimes to use that term.
Yeah, especially some of the places you have to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we were just out today getting some videos of just a couple of the cemeteries that kind of show some of the places you've had to deal with, and probably worse than what they'll see in the videos. And they'll be seeing those right now while we're talking. It's an experience having to do a funeral at some of the remote cemeteries, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Being an undertaker up here in the mountains of eastern Kentucky can be quite an adventure sometimes.
Challenging.
We've gone places that take them as far as you can go in the hearse, then have to put them in some kind of four-wheel drive vehicle to carry them the rest of the way.
Wow.
And sometimes they just have to, as the term they say up here, pack them the best you can.
Wow, that's something folks outside of the mountains maybe don't realize and never had to deal with.
I'm from Georgia originally. Grew up in Georgia. Was a funeral director down there. Most of our cemeteries down there was, flat land. You could just drive almost right to them with a hearse, and they dug easy. And every now and then you'd find one that was a little bit difficult. And some of my grave people would say, "Man, this is a hard grave." And I've told them on a number of occasions, "You guys just don't know." I said, "Go back with me to Harlan County, and we'll show you some graves if you want to talk about a hard grave." It's all has to be jackhammered out or
use a jackhammer now.
Yeah.
It's not much gentler than a stick of dynamite.
Right. The first time I was up here at Mount Pleasant, this is actually the second time that I've been here, but the first time I was up here, one of the first funerals that we were on, Dwayne Jackson, who owned the funeral home, was with us on that service, and we were across Bledsoe, Pine Mountain area over there somewhere, straight up the side of a hill at a graveside. And I looked at him and I said, "Dwayne, don't they put cemeteries on flat land up here?" His response to me was, "Randy, if you stay up here long enough, you go find out there's not any flat land up here."
Yeah. And if you do find a piece of flat land, you're probably going to farm that or build a house on it.
That's exactly what he said. If they was a flat land, they either built their house on it or they put their gardens on it. They really didn't give a lot of thought to a cemetery until the time came, that they needed a place. So they just started putting cemetery and up here in all of these mountain hollers, hillsides. There's cemeteries everywhere.
Yeah,
Everywhere. Family cemeteries, church cemeteries, community cemeteries. It's just a lot difference in being a funeral director in Kentucky and being a funeral director in Georgia. Funeral customs are different, and it's just different thing up here.
Yeah, sometimes I've had hunters tell me, and I've experienced myself in the deep woods. Sometimes you will look around and realize deep in the woods where you don't know how anybody got there, that you're standing in the middle of an old cemetery.
Yeah, you're right. I've been up here long enough now that I know most of the cemeteries, and I know the landscape of it, and I'll call my grave diggers and say, hey, I gotta, we have a grave for y'all to dig, but you better come prepared, because this is gonna be a hard one.
Wrangler boots and a jackhammer.
yeah. Bring your jackhammers. Make sure your pick and shovels are sharp. Yeah. We had one not too awfully long ago. A gentleman had passed away. They went to dig his grave, and when they started digging his, it dug easy. I mean, they could just almost just shovel it out. And we were in the chapel having his service, and while we were having his service, his wife passed away during the service.
Wow.
They went back to the same cemetery, moved over one grave space to take care of her grave, and hit nothing but solid rock. Wow. So, you just never know.
That close.
Yeah.
That much of a difference.
Yeah, how much just moved over one grave space, the difference that it made.
Randy, you mentioned that the customs from where you worked in Georgia and up here in southeast Kentucky can be different. The burial customs, can you enlighten us a little bit on some of those? Well,
in Georgia, most of everything is done at the funeral home. An occasional church service, but here, in the mountains here, you've got all these churches, all these mountainside communities have their own churches, and we carry numerous families back to the church, and the term we use, we set them up in the church.
Yeah.
They stay there for sometimes a couple of nights, and have the visitation, the service, everything there in the church, and bury there in the churchyard. So, but in Georgia, most everything is done at the funeral homes down there.
My family, personally, from this part of Kentucky, has always had more of what you're talking about. They did in Georgia, the traditional thing. We always had it. But I know my wife's family has had members and people she's related to that was set up at the church like you're talking about. Yeah. And then, of course, it comes the thing, somebody's going to have to sit with them all night in the church because you can't just leave them there. And we don't want to anyway.
You've heard the term sitting up with the dead?
Yep, sitting up with the dead.
That's where that came from.
Yeah, and that used to be the thing. Used to, they set them up back here in the mountains in people's houses.
Oh, yeah.
At home.
Yeah, well, even down there in Georgia, when I first started, we carried a lot of people back to their homes.
Yeah.
We'd take the casket, we'd take equipment out to the house, and but it gradually got away from that when funeral homes started to be more modern, if you want to use that term.
Yep.
It kind of got away from taking them home.
Yeah.
We rarely, I can't remember the last time we carried one to somebody's house.
But the churches still...
We do go to the churches.
Quite common.
Often. But, it kind of got away from taking them home.
Randy, how did you end up making this your life's calling?
That's a good question. How did I get into this? I graduated from high school in 1972, so you can do the math. 72 to 2025. My dad was a Baptist preacher. I came home my senior year in high school. I came home from school one afternoon, and some of the men of the church were at the house. They were talking to Daddy about some church activities, and one of the guys there worked at one of the funeral homes in that town. And I told him, I said, hey, you guys, I need a job. Help me find a job so I can have some high school spending money. And this guy said, I can get you a job at the funeral home where I work. I looked at, his name was Danny. I looked at him, I said, Danny, you're crazy. This boy is not working in no funeral home. But I went to work up there doing part-time stuff, just, cutting grass, washing cars, just, whatever they asked me to do. When I graduated from high school, the gentleman that owned the funeral home wanted me to come to work full-time, and I did. Still not thinking that's what I wanted to do. If you know me at all, you know what a huge baseball fan I am.
Yes, yes.
What I wanted to do, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball umpire. That's what I wanted to do. Even though when I went to work at the funeral home, that was not what I had envisioned for my career. But I went to work there, got more interested in it, felt through prayer and things, it felt like that's what the Lord wanted me to do. And the man that owned the funeral home called me in his office one day and he said he needed to talk to me. And I had the thought, well, he's going to tell me he don't need me anymore. But he asked me, he said, we want you to go to mortuary school, funeral director school. And he said, if you'll do that, the funeral home will help you with the expenses. So I did. I went to school, and that was 1972, and I guess you can say the rest is history. And that's how I got started. Nobody in my family is in the funeral business other than me.
But you did have, I guess, with your father being a Baptist minister, funerals was not a strange thing to you.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a strange thing. I had seen Dad do funerals and things, so it was not totally something that I wasn't a little bit familiar with.
But definitely not the family business.
Definitely was not a family business.
Have you went to family business?
When I went to mortuary school in Atlanta, most everybody there was either the son or the daughter of a funeral director that had sent their kids there to get their education. There was myself and one other man in class that were not sons of funeral directors.
I guess you become good friends, didn't you?
Yeah. Actually, we worked at the same funeral home. He was from the same town I was, and we started the same day working at the funeral home. I was hired, and this other man was hired the same day. So we've been friends for a long time. But we were the only two in our class that weren't sons of funeral directors.
So is it still like that today? It's largely a family business?
Not as much as it was. I know the school in Atlanta where I went, a big percentage of that school now is not, people just, think that's what they want to do. So,
do they have a lot of those schools in America, or is it just a few of them?
Well, there's, Atlanta, there's one in Atlanta, there's one just across the river in Louisville. It's actually in Indiana, but it's called Kentucky Mortuary School, but it's actually in Indiana. Just in Cincinnati, there's a school in Cincinnati. Nashville, I'm not sure if the one in Nashville is still there or not. I had back a couple of summers ago, I had one of the school teachers call and asked if they could bring a group of students down here to show them through.
Yeah.
And I met them in the lobby there. And there was about 12 of them. They were teenagers, 13, 14, 15-year-old. And I said, before we start, I'm going to show y'all the most important thing in this funeral home. And their eyes got all big. They thought I was going to show them some kind of, whatever.
Yeah.
And I brought them over here in the coffee lounge, and I showed them that coffee pot over there. I said, that's the most important thing in this funeral home is that coffee pot over there. I said, we could not function without the coffee pot.
Yep, coffee is very important to folks. Now, folks, I have to tell y'all, you might notice while I was talking to Randy in here, that light blinking, that's a bad bulb. That's all that is. Don't get all worked up about it. That's one of those LED bulbs.
Yeah, that coffee pot, we have more people spend their time over here in the coffee lounge than they do.
Yeah.
So, that coffee pot's the most important thing in the funeral home.
Yep.
This is our casket selection room. As you can see, we have a variety of different kinds, different style caskets, wood caskets, metal caskets, price range to fit most anybody's budget.
I believe I was talking to you one time. You told me they had wooden ones that was specially made for cremation. Didn't have any metal in them. They put together
Right,
with like
yeah.
wooden pegs or something.
Yeah, we
So-
have it's just a shell of a casket really
Yeah.
that
And
there's
there's
a
no metal in
cremation insert that goes in it.
Yeah.
And you can see the cap panels back there.
Yeah.
A lot of, we do a lot of custom things, military, coal miner, religious themes.
Yeah.
It's just a selection for people to be able to choose. And that's another thing that has changed with the funeral customs. They're more personalized now. You put, if somebody's a veteran,
Yeah.
you can do the military cap panels in the casket and different things.
And it's kind of generic in the old days. Wasn't
Yeah,
it? Now
back in when I first started, it was all, it wasn't none of the customized stuff. I've had services. I've had one time a guy was a motorcycle rider. We rode his motorcycle in and set it by the casket. More that way now than it was back when I first started. All the caskets basically back then looked the same, and wasn't any of the personal stuff.
I guess it kind of helps the folks with their grief a little bit too.
It does, yeah.
Kind of put the loved ones in
Right.
something that kind of is personalized to their life, their hobbies, their job, their passions, or something.
Yep.
I noticed you said coal miners. I noticed this one here. This one even has the shovel and pick right here on the handles.
And I don't know but this one here has a little light that comes on
That has a light.
in the coal miner's cap in the helmet. Like they
Wow.
wore.
Flip that off and back on so they can see that. Wow. So that has a battery in it, right?
Yeah.
Now that I would have never thought of. That Randy is something completely.
This one over here, if you want to show it too, this one over here, you do the religious theme.
Yeah.
This little church here, it has the same thing.
Oh my goodness.
My wife Michelle and I, we live upstairs in the apartment upstairs up there. I've had people say, "How can you live in a funeral home?" Well,
One day at a time, like everywhere else.
one day at a time.
Yeah.
It never has bothered us. Our boys when they were little, we lived in the funeral home when they were little, and so they too have been around it for a little bit.
So you've been in this business basically your entire adult life. You're working.
Yeah,
life.
basically. I mean, I got away out of it for just a little bit, but always just seemed to drift back to it, and I can't see myself having done anything else other than this. I think it's definitely a calling. It's not something that just anybody can do.
No, it has to be a calling.
It's we deal with people at the worst time of their life, the loss of a loved one. And I know that I've experienced it from personally myself. My dad and mom are both gone. All my grandparents are gone, so aunts and uncles and things like that. I've sat on both sides of the desk. I've sat on the funeral director side, helping families. I've sat on the other side when I needed a funeral director to help me with people in my family that have passed away. My mom, my dad. It can be challenging. It can be difficult. I just try to give back to them. Some of the things that I've experienced and some of the things that I've dealt with. Try to help them.
Let me ask you something. What would you say? I kind of know what your answer is going to be because I think it'd be just about any funeral directors. But what's the most difficult cases or situations you deal with in the loss of a loved one?
Well, again, if you know me very well at all, and my wife can tell you this, children, even though I've been doing this, 52, 53 years, whatever it is, children still You know,
Well, knowing you like I do,
it tugs at your heart.
I kind of knew that I had to ask the question, but knowing you like I do, I knew the answer.
Yeah.
But
Well, I don't want to sound callous and say, you know, an elderly person that has lived their life. You know, still, you know, that's
Yeah.
someone's loved one. That's someone's grandmother, grandfather, daddy, husband, whatever. I don't want to think. I don't want to sound like I'm not caring for them for that situation. But with children, I mean, it can just pull at your heart. One in
Very
Georgia,
sad.
a little 4-year-old boy. I had known his family all my life. His granddaddy was a bus driver. I rode his granddaddy's school bus, and I got a call one morning from that little 4-year-old boy's mother, and you know that was not unusual because you know I was family friends with them, been to their house, and she called me and I could tell something was wrong, and I asked her. I said, you know what's going on, and I'm not calling no names or anything, but she said we lost our son this morning, and you know it just you know I say I've known that family all my life. His granddaddy was my school bus driver when I was in school, so you know things like that is when it gets tough.
yeah, but that's a time when the family needs somebody like you the most, and a good funeral director, a compassionate, caring funeral director. And I from knowing you personally, I can tell folks you are a compassionate, caring one, can make a difference.
The Lord has blessed me with the ability to understand a little bit about what people are dealing with. He's given me the compassionate heart to understand a little bit about what they're dealing with, and you know I'm thankful for that. Thankful for that blessing.
Yeah, I like I said, I can attest that you and your wife Michelle are very caring, loving people. You run a food bank here in Harlan, the Mustard Seed Outreach, together outside of your work as a funeral director. You and her does, and there's a lot of folks in Harlan depends on that. And you're good folks. Y'all can take my word for that. They're good people. Some of the nicest too.
Well, we just try to be what the Lord wants us to be. This is our chapel here. This is where we have majority of our funerals. If we don't take them back here to a church somewhere. When this chapel was built, Dwayne Jackson had this chapel built. He wanted it to be something that families could think of as a church. It works good, you know. It's adequate for most any faith.
Yeah.
Can have a service here and
Yeah,
feel,
I'm sure you set it up for
feel comfortable.
yeah.
You know, we've had Catholic services here. We've had Baptist, had some Mountain Pentecostal services, things like that. So it's suitable for any faith that people can feel comfortable having a funeral here if they want to. Well, you know, we still kind of hold to some of the old customs of doing, you know, funerals. We'll line cars up. We'll go in a procession to the cemetery.
Yeah, and that's a southern thing. I understand from folks outside of the South, is when all the cars stop on the other side of the road as
Yeah, we had one. We went from here down to Rest Haven one day with a service, had a police escort, and people were pulling over to the side. And when we got to the cemetery down there to take the casket out of the back of the hearse for the service down there, one of the pallbearers said, "I have never." He was from somewhere bigger city.
Up north,
he said, "I have never seen that in my life."
Yep.
He said, "People pulling off on the side of the road." He said, "It wouldn't happen where I'm from."
I've had relatives when I was a child who'd moved up north, a lot of them to Illinois, Michigan, places like that, and they come back, and that's one of the first things they mentioned. Said up there, said they don't stop for funerals. Said life goes on.
Well, we have, and not just here, but the other funeral homes too. We have a good relationship with our city police and our county sheriff's department. They're always willing and able and to give us escorts for funerals, and so we still hold to that old custom.
Yeah.
People will pull off on the side of the road. as the funeral goes by.
Yeah, I personally like that. I think to show respect to a person's last ride on this earth
Yeah.
they'll be taking is a good thing,
Yeah.
And I think whatever you're doing in your day, no matter how busy it is, you can give a few minutes to do that. Pull over.
Well, how would they feel if they were in that position and people didn't stop? Would
Yeah.
they be, like I say, it don't take but just a few minutes for it to pass by.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you're too busy to pay respect, then you're just too busy.
Randy, how did you end up in Harlan County all the way out of Georgia?
Good question. I've asked myself that many times. How did I end up here? But I met Michelle in Georgia. She was down there. I was working as an EMT, some part-time EMT work with the ambulance service down there. That's how I met her. She worked in the hospital there. We would go in and out of the hospital and actually work with some of the people on the ambulance service that knew her before I did, and we
And
kind
she
of.
won you over with that Harlan County charm.
She won me over that Harlan County
Yeah,
charm.
that's right. These Harlan girls are something. Anyway, go ahead.
I asked her one time, I said, where are you from? And she said, I'm from Cranks, Kentucky. I asked her, I said, is that a real place? She said, yeah, it's a real place.
Well, you know that now, don't you?
But we got married, and she wanted to move back up here. Her mother was sick and things, and she wanted to come back up here to her family. So I told her, I said, I've got to have a job. She grew up with Dwayne Jackson up there in Cranks. They're all from the same community up there. So she said, let's stop down at Mount Pleasant and talk with them down there. And I did. I came in and talked to Dwayne Jackson that owned the funeral home, and told him that, a little bit about me, give him a resume. As far as I know, he never looked at it. He said, when you get ready to come back up here, if you do move up here, said, come see me and we'll. So I did. We got married. We got ready to move back up here, and I came and told him, I said, we're moving back. And he said, well, I really don't know at that time if he really had a need for me, but he did give me a job here and helped me get my Kentucky license. Total time, the first time at Mount Pleasant and this time, it makes about 16 years that I've been here at Mount Pleasant total.
Wow. Randy, kind of take us through, your process when you're meeting a family that's lost a loved one for the first time, and the planning process and how you help them out. And,
Well, most of the families that we deal with here, it's families that have been Mount Pleasant families all their, every time they've had a death, they've always used Mount Pleasant. So, we know a lot of them, even, beforehand. So it's not like we're meeting strangers. We go to church with them sometimes. We see them at Walmart. We see them at the grocery store or whatever. So it's not like we're dealing with total strangers. I know when I was in Atlanta, I worked at a funeral home in Atlanta, down close to the Atlanta airport. People that you dealt with down there was a lot of times it was people you had never seen before. Didn't know them.
a little more difficult.
Didn't know anything about their families or anything. Yeah, that makes it more difficult. When you're dealing with people that you see them on the street, like I say, you go to church with them, you go to ball games with them. So that makes a difference. You've already got kind of that personal relationship with them a little bit. You know what they're looking for, if you want to use that term. You know what they expect. They kind of know how to react to you. We know how to react to them. So that makes it easier. And it can also be kind of a difficult thing, when you're friends with somebody and they have a loss, you feel that too. You feel that too. So it can be kind of a two-way thing. You're trying to help them, give them guidance, and at the same time, you're kind of with them on the side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They've lost somebody that's dear to them. You kind of feel that with them. There's no greater feeling and I know other funeral directors will probably tell you the same thing, but when you take a family up to the casket for the first time, and they're standing there for the first time seeing their loved one laying there in that casket, and they look at you with tears in their eyes, and they say, "Randy, we couldn't have done it without you."
Yeah, yeah.
There's no greater satisfaction as a funeral director to hear them say that, and there's no greater satisfaction as a friend, that they look at you and they say, we couldn't have done it without you. Well, you've got to sit and listen. You got to kind of know how to read people. And I think that's one of the things that the Lord's blessed me with, that ability. But you've got to, while you're sitting here at the desk and you're getting information, you still got to kind of have an ear to listen to what they're saying, because everybody deals with it different. Some people get mad.
Yeah, yeah.
That if they've lost a loved one, they have that feeling. Why did they have to pass away? Why did they have to die?
Especially when it's untimely.
If it's untimely, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with somebody that's going through an illness, that has a lingering illness, it's a different feeling sometimes than if it's a sudden thing. It can be.
Yeah, yeah.
Emotions can run wild.
Yeah.
Like I say, we deal with people at the worst time.
Yeah.
Of their life. There'll never be another time except when they lose a loved one. So emotions can be all over the place.
Yeah, and a sudden death, like you said, is dreadful. It is absolutely. What's the one quality that you would think, if you can think of one, that is absolutely essential for your job, that you can't see somebody making it far in it if they don't have that one quality?
Well, I think you've got to have. I mentioned it out there a while ago. You've got to have a compassionate heart. You've got to. You can't think. Yes, it's been a career for me. It's provided a living for me and my family. It's provided a means for me to take care of my family from a financial side of it. But also, you can't just look at it like that. You've got to have that heart for people. You got to have a desire that that you're helping somebody. And if you don't have that quality, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. That's not an easy thing to do. But like I said, the Lord's blessed me with that ability to do that. I think. I know there's people that are better at it than I am, but I feel like the Lord's blessed me. 53, almost 53 years of doing this. Like I say, it has, it's took care of me and my family financially, but at the same time, it's been a blessing to be able to help people. I've had some awesome families that I have, made a lasting friendship with. If you look back there in that there's a cabinet back there that has a lot of baseball memorabilia in there. There's about 3 baseballs in there that have been given to me by families that I have took care of, that found out that I was a big baseball guy. And there's at least 3 baseballs in that cabinet over there that have been given to me by families because they said, here, we want to give this to you. Just a little token of our appreciation to you. So, things like that, I'll never forget those kind of things. As long as I'm, I'll never forget those kind of things. This is another example of personalization. This is actually my mother's picture. My mom passed on Valentine's Day of this year. The funeral home that we used in Georgia, did that for me and my brother, and I'm keeping it for a little while. But that's actually my mom. We do something similar to that with our families too sometimes. But that's kind of the old Reader's Digest condensed version.
Well, of a half a century in the funeral business.
Half a century in the funeral business.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Randy. Appreciate that, and thank you guys.
Well,
for watching.
I hope I've shared a little bit about what it means to me. Of 53 years of doing this, and like I said a while ago, I've stood at places with some very dear families, some very dear friends, and have made some lifetime friendship, lifetime memories. And I hope it's been a little bit of a enlightenment to you and the people that might view this at a later time.
Well, I can tell you, folks, this is the real deal. Once you see here, that's Randy. He don't have a video personality. That's him.
Yeah.
You visited with the genuine, real person, and he does genuinely care.
Well, I've been told before I have a face that was meant for radio.
I've been told that too. We must have the same talent agent. But unfortunately, I'm told that I have a voice for silent movies. So, Randy's got a great sense of humor. He's easy to talk to. Thank you so much, Randy, for sharing a half a century of your life with us. I think people really enjoy learning that. We usually say bye at the end of these videos. Randy, I think we'll simply say, God bless you, folks.
I'm going to share this too. You might want to put this on there. We lost, I'm not going to call his name, but we lost one of our Mount Pleasant families. He worked here with us. Matter of fact, it was a year ago yesterday, but he never would let us say goodbye. He said, don't tell me goodbye. He said, you can tell me so long or see you later or whatever, but do not say goodbye to me. And so I'm not saying goodbye. So long. We'll see.
Okay. So
we'll see you somewhere.
We'll say at the end of this one, God bless you, folks.
God bless you. God bless everybody.
Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.